Hello and welcome. This is the United Road, and we are back after a terrible and boring and rubbish international break watching and following England. But I am joined today by a guest who I have wanted for ages. One of the happiest blokes I've ever met in my life. A good friend of mine, a good friend of Stretford Paddocks, and now a good friend of the United Road. John Shin, it is amazing to have you on. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on, my man.
Oh, it's I'm very happy to have you on, mate. How have you been? What's new with you?
Okay, likewise, man. I'm happy to be on. I think we need to continue to promote each other's content and continue to promote podcasts and then things, especially when there are sensible people like yourself talking about Manchester United in a positive, not positive in the toxic positive, but with sense.
As positive as we can do at the moment in time, I guess. It's what I try to avoid. I don't want to be that negative Nelly, but it's hard not to be at this point. But you've got to focus on the positives, haven't you? You've got to try your best to, anyway.
I mean, I think it's important as a content creator. I mean, we could just jump right into it, but I think it's important for content creators to make sure that I don't want to sound like we're freaking Justice League sitting here like Superman, but I think there is a responsibility of making sure that there is a sense of rationality with respect to what we're saying. I think it's okay to be negative. I think it's okay to be critical because it's what makes football worth supporting. It's the emotions that drive us, and it's what keeps us invested in a club, and I think it's okay to say things that you feel, didn't go right or something that you felt like could have gone better. But I think it's about the way we deliver it. It's about how we approach the conversation. And I think, yourself and many other, content creators, you mentioned Stretford Paddock, there's plenty of people out there that speak sense and do it well and do it. I don't want to say do it positively. I think they do it responsibly.
Responsibly is a perfect way of saying it. I think Paddock's a really good way of doing that. I mean, that's kind of something I want to do as well. Hopefully, I mean, we're just getting started. I mean, I know obviously wrote a blog for ages, but a podcast was always something I wanted to give a go and give a try. So, and then having someone, a seasoned professional like yourself on, it's always very easy to sort of go because it makes the conversation just flow so much. We speak about positivity and stuff, so it's a little bit frustrating that we're having to speak about this. But I'm assuming you watched the game Saturday night. What were your thoughts on the whole performance, the result as a whole, and kind of what was your impression, especially given the Liverpool game and the international break and stuff? But was you expecting more?
Absolutely. I think that was the first game that I felt like drained, like whatever calorie or joules or whatever the form of measurement is with respect to metric values of strength and energy. I had that drained. I think that's been the story of our season. I think trying to find that consistency, trying to figure out what's right and keep that going. I think trying to figure out what's wrong and nip it in the bud. I think those are the things that I think we've struggled to do this season. And I think it's no matter how much I can sit here and try to be positive, and I try to keep things realistic. And I think it wasn't good enough. I think it was poor, and unfortunately for Manchester United, that's been the story of the season so far. And I've been positive. I've been optimistic. Filled with hope, a season after Jose Mourinho, a season after Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. There have been plenty of moments since Sir Alex Ferguson's retirement where we've sat here thinking, all right, it might be better. It'll be better, But this is the first time where I was just like, this is our season, and I'm just drained. I'm out here just feeling drained.
It was proper rough, wasn't it? It was. I mean, I watched it at home on Saturday night, and I think the thing that really hurts me was the sort of lack of tactical nous and sort of know-how of a lot of the players. It seemed like they were kind of a bit all over the place. I thought we saw the front line try and press, but then there was such a gap between the forward line and the midfield, and then the defence was quite low back. So it just seems so disjointed and a bit all over the place. And it's not the first time we've seen that though this season, is it? Like, does that not worry you? I mean, we'll get on to Ten Hag a little bit later on, but against Brentford, we shouldn't be conceding 31 shots. And, I think it's 106 shots in like the last 4 or 5 games. Do these sort of tactical things that you're hearing and things you're seeing just through your own eyes, it must bother you, surely?
Oh, absolutely. It is definitely concerning. And when Eric Ten Hag says it doesn't matter if they're not scoring goals, whatever. Like, I mean, he can say what he likes, but I think that's just pure Eric Ten Hag, presser management type of conversation. I'm sure, he's in this. I'm sure he's with his coaching staff worried about these stats 100%, And the thing that I thought I was The thing that frustrated me was when we were playing against Liverpool in the FA Cup. There was a moment, especially I like to reflect in specific moments. There was a moment where Callum and Marcus and they were pushing forward, and there was a moment where Rashi looked like he was, he had a spring about his step. He looked bright, and he looked like he was ready for something. And I had a feeling he was going to score, which he did against Liverpool. But there was a moment where he was just up for it, and he just started bombing towards I forgot who it was, but he was pushing towards a Liverpool player to try and press as fast as he could. But then he hears on the right of his shoulder, he turns around and he hears Rasmus, and he hears Rasmus go, "Stop! Don't go, don't go." And you see Rashford immediately stop. And the reason why that's important is because you can clearly see there's a sense of direction there, right? And where Rasmus and Rashi were sort of holding up the line, they were just about like maybe 5 yards, 10 yards ahead of the halfway line, letting Liverpool dictate in that space and letting them sort of come to us, if you will, for specific moments when it comes to systematic pressing. I love that so much because you can clearly tell that there was a sense of direction, and you can clearly tell there was communication amongst your players. There's no point in pressing against teams in the Premier League with one player. It has to be a system press. This is a quality league. This is one of the best leagues, if not the best league in the world. You can say Brentford, you can say Luton Town, you can say Liverpool. You're not gonna get away with one man pressing.
Yeah, it's the cliche, isn't it? There's no easy games in the league, is there?
Yeah, it is cliche. And look, I'm not here to just blindly defend Ten Hag, but that point in particular was really, really good to see. And you contrast that to when we were playing against Brentford, there was none of that. And I think that comes down to the lacking consistency. I think it comes down to a lacking experience. I think for Erik Ten Hag, he maybe could have done a little bit more with respect to, trying to change things in-game management type of approach. I think there could have been so many things that were better, but that was one thing that was just such a distinct contrast between that Liverpool game and against the Brentford game, where there was just no systematic approach with respect to the press. The way that the Brentford goalkeeper Flecken, or I forgot his name, Flecken, the way he was just distributing, always finding that one extra man who had yards of space around him. Like, you can clearly tell something was off. I don't know what that is. I can't sit here. I don't want to talk stats. I'm not a big stat guy. From an eye test, it looked clearly like it was miles different from the match against Liverpool, and it was frustrating. I can't sit here and tell you I was like, oh man, we're going to get. I tried that. If I was doing a live stream in that game, I was sitting here like, we're gonna win. My chat was like, John, you smoking? What are you talking about? No, what do you know? This is gash, bro. I know it was gash, but I follow my gut instinct, and something told me we were gonna just take one, just sneaky goal, and we did score the sneaky goal with Mason Mount. But the way we conceded was a plethora of many of the issues that we saw in that match. And, in some ways, in retrospect, I probably shouldn't be surprised.
I mean, the thing that proper irks me about it, though, as well, is you say that there, though, but we played terribly. Like, there was no beating around the bush. We played awfully, and we still nicked a goal in the 96th minute. How could we not just keep our focus for those extra few minutes and hold that win? I think Champions League is gone. Even if I think fifth is even too much of a stretch now, I'd be very surprised if we were to catch that. Fourth is an absolute no-go. So it's looking like potentially Europa League again next season, which is a competition we've been way too familiar with over the last 11, 12 years. But it's so frustrating knowing that the players didn't, not necessarily the bottle, but they didn't have the mental capacity to be able to deal with an extra 2-3 minutes of a game where they played terribly, managed to keep Brentford out, arguably through Brentford's poor finishing and lack of quality. But how they didn't manage to just keep it out that little bit longer is what was probably my biggest frustration. Because we managed to Man United have nicked so many wins over the years. How couldn't we just do that one more and end up giving away such an easy goal, another cutback goal, which we've seen continuously throughout the season? Like, that was my biggest frustration, I think. And I don't understand how these issues and these things aren't being addressed or dealt with, whether it's on the training ground, whether it's personnel. But I don't know what the excuse is, but that's the biggest frustration for me.
Well, look, and I think one of the reasons why it's so hard for me as a content creator trying to figure out what these issues are is because I think it's unexplainable. How can a team like Manchester United go to Brentford and get dominated like that, but also at the same time rally with one of the best performances I've seen in such a long time against Liverpool? That up and down
absolutely
is so crazy.
I mean, there's no point having those games against Liverpool if you can't do them against the likes of Brentford and Luton and Sheffield United, Burnley, yeah, the lower teams. No disrespect to those teams, but if you can play like that against Liverpool, but then can't continue that passion and that performance level and that effort level, I don't want to just make it down as they showed no effort, because that's obviously not the case. But if they can't continue that and consistently apply that to every team in the league, it almost makes those games against Liverpool a little even more frustrating, because we know we can do that. And when they're not doing it against teams that we should definitely be seeing wins against, that's what makes it even worse, I think. And that's where it comes to me, where it's like, right, there's clearly a fundamental issue, whether it's the coaching, whether it's above that, whether it's the players themselves, I don't know. But that's where it comes. That's my biggest error with it, and it winds me up no amount, to the point where something's got to give somewhere, whether it be the players. Like, there's comments here. Really appreciate your comments, guys, as well. Keep coming in. But, it must be a mentality issue. The cutbacks this season have been wild against us. It's happened continuously. And it's like you say about content creators. This content creator here, Jack Fawcett, shout out to him, really good. Our expected points and from expected performances throughout the league, and I'm not a big XG guy, but it has us 11th in the league. Us being 6th isn't sustainable, and the performances aren't sustainable. Like, what do you make of that stat?
I mean, 11. If it has us 11th, I mean, it kind of speaks volumes just to the inconsistency. I mean, you were talking about Aaron Gall in the chat was talking about the cutbacks. I mean, if you watch that game, there was a moment where Ivan Toney just completely rinses Victor Lindelof, and don't get me wrong, I like Victor, but he wasn't first choice, especially last season. I'd say he was maybe third choice, fourth choice, if anything. This season alone, we've had to deal with so many injuries, and we've had a player. Ivan Toney, who we were linked with, who was phenomenal. I think he just forgot his shooting boots, but apart from that, him, Wissa, even Mbueno when he came on, they were all effective. Janel, to all of those guys, they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they were doing it to perfection. And I think they just, at the end of the day, I think they just had a little bit more of that sharpness about them. I was on another show not too long ago, and I was talking about how, look, this is not a one-man issue. This is a systemic issue. And one of the things I was talking about was with respect to our entirety of the season and how we've managed it. And I mean, we can go honestly, like, as I'm saying this, I'm already getting exhausted because we could talk about all of these problems, you know what I mean? But it's just, it is shocking. It is definitely concerning.
Well, I mean, I guess that kind of brings us nicely to the thing that I don't like discussing, really. But with these performance comes questions over the manager's head. And I had Dev Bajra on a couple of weeks ago, and I think we were we came to a consensus that we want Ten Hag to stay. What are your thoughts on Ten Hag? Do you think he deserves more time? Do you think he should stay next season? What's kind of your thought process?
If Manchester United didn't have all of the off the pitch issues that we faced since Ten Hag's taken over, then I would understand if Ten Hag was relieved of his services. I mean, the results aren't good. I mean, let's just be real. But the reason why I continue to back and support Erik ten Hag, no matter what, is because I feel bad for a man who's had to deal with so much crap. I mean, we're talking about even Cristiano Ronaldo. This is a man that was, for many Man United fans, Mr. Man United. I mean, say what you will about his time. I'm going to keep it 100 with you guys in the chat, whatever it is. I was never, like, I respect and love Cristiano, but I never thought that, him returning to Manchester United was going to be always pretty. The vibes were absolutely immaculate, but I've always worried that Cristiano, being the man he is, one of the GOATs, if not the GOAT of football, Manchester United were not ready to host somebody of that magnitude. And and I was proven right. I mean, the way he exited Man United left us in tatters. Erik ten Hag had to deal with that. He had to deal with losing Jadon Sancho in the middle due to his issues that he had to deal with off the pitch. And he comes back after being given the time off, and then Erik ten Hag loses him again. In that moment, in that stretch, that 2-3 months where Anthony was just playing poorly, that could have been the opportunity for Jadon Sancho to come on. But no, Jadon Sancho didn't want to be a part of it. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many things that Erik ten Hag has had to deal with, and I feel so bad for the guy. But again, at the end of the day, it's a results-based business. No matter how much I sit here and sound like, I'm waffling or I'm being stupid about protecting a man that's already gone or whatever you guys think in the chat, at the end of the day, it's a results-based business. And if Ineos are going to be ruthless, then they'll probably take this as the opportunity and say, maybe we should change things around. I don't want that to be the case because I want to see Ineos as the leaders, as the new minority owners who control footballing decisions. I want them to be the owners that at least give their man a chance. Erik ten Hag might not be their man, but at least they'll say, look, clean slate, we'll give you one more chance. You want this and this and this, we'll back you. But if it doesn't work out then we'll reassess at the end of the season. And then I'll keep my hands up and say, look, I agree. It's time for him to go at the end of the next season. But for now, I think he at least deserves one more season.
Yeah, I mean, with that, obviously, I think with Ten Hag as well, all those issues have genuinely been a major stumbling block. And I actually think he's portrayed himself immaculately with how he's dealt with those issues. Like you said there, the Ronaldo thing, I was ecstatic when he came back.
Who wasn't?
Who wasn't? Everyone was happy that he came back. I'd like to imagine a lot of people were happy that he came back. One of the best players ever to play the game. Man United legend. I think he's tarnished that reputation slightly, if I'm being honest. But I think that the longer it went on, we all knew this was a mistake. And the fact that, Ten Hag didn't let Ronaldo's ego be bigger than him or the club, I don't think Ronaldo liked it. I'd also argue Jadon Sancho, that was the perfect way of describing it. Anthony went bang out of form very quickly, didn't he? That was your opportunity for Jadon Sancho to come in, take that spot and go, do you know what, you've not played well. I'm going to now play well and I'm going to make the right wing spot at Man United my own. Because that's what we signed him for. It's what Solskjaer, I believe, signed him for. And I think that his attitude has been pretty stinky, to be honest, with the way he's been at this club, to be honest. And I think the sooner we get rid of him, the better, quite frankly. So the off the field issues, obviously with the ownership, Ineos coming in, all that sort of stuff, that that's by the by. However, the one thing I'd want to ask, mate, is do you think Ineos have already made their mind up?
I think if I don't think about it, like if I just instinctively say, if I instinctively come up with an answer, I'd say yes, they've already made their mind up because I think their maybe bar or their standard is maybe Champions League qualification. If they don't make that, then maybe Erik ten Hag has to go. And that's my instinctive thought, but my emotional, like here thought thinks that Ineos are going to give him that one season. And the reason why I say this, and people might disagree with me, but the reason why I believe that is because I think Ineos understand that this is going to be a long-term project. They know they don't want, and I think Ineos and Sergeant Ratcliffe in particular, he knows what Man United fans have been through. He knows what Man United fans are like. And I'm not saying that we're the best in the world and we're special and whatever. Of course, I'd love to, but I think Sergeant Ratcliffe understands the identity, and I think he thinks he'll see that we can't operate like we're a bunch of assassins, right? We can't operate like we were Chelsea under Abramovich. Like, I don't think that's sustainable, and I don't think that's healthy. I think it takes a very special decision maker, and it takes a very special collective to run a football club like that. And I think you tread on thin ice when you operate like that anyway, but that's a conversation for a different day. I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos, I think they're going to give him another season. I truly believe that.
Do you genuinely believe that? I mean, obviously rumor mills and papers, I don't know how prominent it is in America, but there's so many rumors and so many things going around that Southgate will be coming in the summer. There'll be, there's rumors that there's Graham Potter, Ruben Amorim's been obviously mentioned. Do you not think Ineos have potentially gone, do you know what, these performances aren't good enough? Because you mentioned before the results base and all that, we are sixth, we are still within distance of Champions League. I think it's the performances that are people's big issue. And yes, we should likely get to a final of the FA Cup, but obviously it's not a given. Do you not think Ineos, just playing that devil's advocate, have already made their minds up and gone, do you know what? We can't afford to give him that year. It's our time now. We're going to take the reins, and it's going to be Ten Hag. Thank you for your service. Goodbye, I guess.
Here's what I think. I think Ineos are going to give him that extra that one season that chance, because I think Ineos understand that this is a long-term investment project. I think they're not going to come in here and just chop up and change house, like just clean house immediately. I don't think that's healthy, and I don't think that's sustainable. Now, people can agree with me or disagree with me. That's fine, but I just feel it's just a gut thing. I don't know. I've always just went by my gut. I've been called stupid. I've been called a whole bunch. I've been called a spoon. I've been called a widge. I don't know half the things that people call me, but I've been called a whole bunch of things. But for me, I just feel it in my
John, I've been called worse. I can guarantee you.
I just feel it. It's just right here. It tells me that I feel like they're going to give him a chance and show to look. One thing that's important that I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe understands is that Manchester United fans are tired. I know they're tired, but they also want to be careful about how they go about addressing this tiredness. Because when you feed a fire, it's always just going to spread uncontrollably. They're going to want to figure out, all right, where can we create this wiggle room? And where do we have the space to operate? If they give Erik ten Hag a chance, I think at least one more season, I think it creates the image and the mentality that these owners, yes, they have. I mean, I hope that they have this cutthroat energy and the mentality behind them, because at the end of the day, it is a results business. But also at the same time, they have the compassion and understanding that, okay, there's been so much crap that's gone wrong. I think we also need to remember that Manchester United is not just a football club. We are an institution across the world. One of the things that's been tattered over the years is our image, how people perceive, how the perception of Manchester United fans, from not just from us, but from people all around the world. You know, we don't want to operate like Chelsea. We don't want to operate like the rest. We want to try to be a little bit more, different, a little more Man United. You know what I mean? And I think that one season won't. I think it won't. I don't think it's going to cause a poop storm. You know what I mean?
I think that the sane person would say that, but I think when you go online, I think it probably would. You know, Man United lose one game and everything's worse with the world, and United fans on Twitter lose the plot. I think my biggest thing with that is because of maybe the lack of patience of some fans. I think that's where Ineos might go, do you know what, performances are terrible. Maybe we do need our own man. I personally was speaking to Dev about this the other week, but I think the performances are alarmingly bad. And I think that the tactics and the way we play is alarmingly bad. And I think that's why I fear for Ten Hag. I think if you were to genuinely give him the time next season with a proper structure above him, I think he'd probably do well, because he's actually a very good coach. So I'm hoping that is what is allowed of him. Do you think the structure would above him, as long as he allows it to work properly above him? Do you think that would really help Ten Hag in that next season, so to speak?
Yeah, I 100% believe that, and I think one of the things that people, I think fans in general, especially the ones that are very aggressive and very extreme on social media in particular, I think they take revisionism to another level. You know, I've seen so many comments about people saying like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was way better than Erik ten Hag. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer his football was miles better. Yeah, it might have been at times, but when things started going badly for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it was bad. Those performances were bad. I flew halfway across the world to England to watch Ole Gunnar Solskjaer get stomped by Watford 4-0. I was in that paddock studio screaming my heart out trying to back them, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. And I remember that, yeah. David De Gea double save, and I was screaming in Spanish. You know, I haven't spoken Spanish in a decade. I was just yelling, trying to back them. But at the end of the day, like I said before, I want people to understand that this is a results-based business. And of course, I want to back them. And I think at this specific moment in time, at the time of recording, I think Erik ten Hag is still the man to go for Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos. However, if the results continue to capitulate in terms of losses, we have Chelsea and Liverpool next. Those are not going to be easy matches at all. That is going to be the make or break, I believe, for Ineos in terms of how much wiggle room they have with respect to making sure that the fans are pleased, as well as making sure that the results, or from a deliverance perspective, can Ineos do the right job in terms of being owners or minority owners of Man United. And there's just so much at stake right now. FA Cup, Champions League spot, Erik ten Hag's job, Ineos' reputation. There's just so much on the line, and there's so much ambiguity that honestly, at the end of the day, nobody really knows. Nobody really knows.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and to be fair, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. But in terms of bringing on to the next topic or to speak about, obviously, Ten Hag has got the, like I say, I think actually Ineos might have already made their mind up. I think if they haven't, the Chelsea and Liverpool games will probably make their mind up. Whether it be before the season ends or the end of the season. Obviously, if we go to the FA Cup final, it wasn't even enough for Van Gaal, so it might not be enough for Ten Hag. We don't know. I'd like to see him given another year. However, he needs to massively address the flaws in his system that we're seeing, and the tactical problems that we're seeing week in, week out need to be addressed immediately. And the reason, my worry and why I fear for him, is because one game a week now for however long, and they've seemed to have been prolonged and continued, and that's my worry. But obviously we briefly mentioned then, John, about structure and Ineos coming in with the right structure. Some news came out just before we came on the air, actually, about Jason Wilcox, Southampton director of football, I believe. Now, I will openly admit I don't know that much about him. Now, the news I really want to speak about, though, was he's obviously resigned from his role, and I believe there is a 12-month notice period. There's also, I think, an 18-month gardening leave notice period for Dan Ashworth. Are these a little bit concerning in terms of, because obviously we're wanting to build a structure to go into summer, but it's looking like that structure is not going to be in place because the people we want aren't available for the summer. What next for us?
With respect to Jason Wilcox, while I was on the other show, I just heard people talking about it. I didn't have a chance to actually fact check him myself, but I heard he had some involvement in the Manchester City Academy. I also heard he played.
I believe so.
Yeah, I don't really know too much about him, but what I can say from this right here is Jason Wilcox is pushing for that move. I mean, him handing in that resignation. He's like, oh, there's all these stipulations in my contract. Nah, screw that. Man United come calling, I'm out of here. That's kind of the energy that I got. You were mentioning gardening leave and whatnot. I just feel like Manchester United right now, I think they want to be ready for the summer. I think they need to be ready for the summer. And whoever it is, I mean, if they need to move on from Dan Ashworth or whatever it is, if they need to hire Jason Wilcox now, they're gonna have to find the best man to bring in to be ready for the summer. Because because the summer is so crucial and so integral to how a season pans out. And if we don't have the summer sorted out, it's gonna be another season of if, buts, and maybes, and it's going to be absolute chaos once again. And I like the move from Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos that they're going to bring in somebody like Jason Wilcox. I might not know too much about him, but from a perspective of a new ownership trying to show a sense of organization and a sense of urgency behind said organization, I can only be optimistic.
Yeah, to be fair, I did read that myself about the Man City Academy, and obviously the Academy has been very successful at Man City, and the sort of building up of it over the last 15 years, probably, maybe a little bit less, but obviously they have built up, they started to produce some incredible youngsters, i.e., the likes of Phil Foden, Cole Palmer's obviously another one, I believe, as well. Rico Lewis, I'm sure there's many others as well, but I'm not a City fan, so I can't reel them off the top of my head. But so it's obviously a success story from where he's been, and obviously then took the main job at Southampton. So there's obviously a really good pedigree and CV behind him. Seems like in terms of him coming in as director of football, and then I think Dan Ashworth would come in as head of recruitment or head of football operations, whatever it is. I'm seeing reports that United have actually given up on Dan Ashworth because especially for this summer, because they know it's just not going to happen because Newcastle are effectively holding us to ransom. Do you think that's because we're Man United? Do you think that's because, every other club might be a little bit terrified that Man United might be on the way back? I sound so arrogant saying it, but I do not care.
Well, with respect to the part about coming back, I think every club maybe has that thought in the back of their mind. But for a club like Newcastle, who thought maybe last season, I don't know, maybe not so much this season, but last season in particular, they've shown that they had for a spell an opportunity to, push for the higher positions in the table. They're going to see Man United as a competitor. You're going to do whatever it takes to make your competitor's life a living nightmare and living hell. So I do understand why they're doing it.
I wouldn't say Southampton would ever see United as that competitor, though. So why do you think Southampton are forcing, because obviously they're going to want a sizable compensation package as well. So, I half understand Newcastle doing it because they're obviously trying to get into the fold. They're trying to build this rivalry back up with Newcastle, with Man United and all that. So I half get it. I also think it's a little bit hypocritical of them considering they did the exact same thing to Brighton 18 months ago. Yeah. So so it's hypocritical, but I half understand why Newcastle did it. But surely Southampton don't really have a bone to pick with United.
They don't. But again, this is all competition. At the end of the day, they're Brentford respectfully aren't Man United competitors, but they'll do whatever they can to get points off of Man United, make our lives a living nightmare. And Southampton also, we're not our direct rivals and competitors. Hell no, but they still play in the Premier League or come up and down once in a while. You know what I mean? And I just feel like
don't come at me with logic. We don't want logic on this. Don't come at me with logic, John. Why are they doing it? It's because they hate us. That's why.
They hate us, then.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I think it does. I get what you said. Obviously, Brentford will always want to take it. I think it's a collective, isn't it? That the Premier League always have that thing over Man United that they don't like us, and they probably do they probably bask in the fact that they've managed to take points off us, or if they took that extra money off us or whatever. But the Southampton thing seems a bit strange, especially when they've not even guaranteed for promotion next season. Surely it'd be a sizable step for Jason Wilcox, and they'd really want to facilitate that. But so I just think the behaviour from Southampton's side is probably a little bit strange. But like I say, I get it from Dan Ashworth. But obviously, from this summer, Omar Berardi comes in as well, doesn't he? So I'd like to think with him coming in, because obviously he oversaw an incredible structure at Manchester City, and how they've got that structure is obviously a whole other debate and argument about that. But we're not here to discuss the 115 charges they have on them. But he's obviously overseeing an incredible structure there and help them sort of grow their brand and their multi-club ownership model. So for me, that's a really exciting thing, him coming in and overseeing all that. So I think once he actually starts work officially, not that he's probably not doing a little couple of things at the minute, but I think once he comes in and oversees everything officially, I think we're going to see many changes, whether it be backroom staff, coaches, the staff that us fans would never even think about, players, all that. I think he's probably the most exciting appointment out of everybody.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just gonna say, I agree. I think Omar and all those people, but that's my point. I was saying that there's just so much things that we can't really speculate. I mean, many a times when we think about a new manager coming in, or if he's linked with us, we can kind of speculate because we kind of know what their football style is, what their history is, what their CV is, what have they done. But when it comes to new ownership, you can't really speculate that much. You know what I mean? And Omar Berardi, we can obviously speculate because he's had a fantastic resume that speaks for itself at Manchester City. So those things we can obviously be excited for. But at the end of the day, I'll have to wait and see. When we were talking, when the whole Man United the being up for sale thing happened, what was it, like freaking 12 years ago? No, it feels like, I'm just kidding. It was like so long ago. But when that all happened,
it feels like 12 years ago, though. You're right.
When that first happened, I told many Man United fans to calm down. Like, there's no need to even talk about it because this is a billionaires play thing. We don't know if Sergeant Ratcliffe is coming or the Qataris are coming. And for a whole year, I was just speaking about that. And people were like, why don't you make videos about this, blah, blah, blah. I try to keep it to a minimum because it was a waste of my time. I honestly didn't feel like it was going to really affect us much in the long term. So right now, the only thing that will affect us is what happens when these decisions are made. So now what we've seen is the CV of Omar Berardi, is the CV of Dan Ashworth, is the CV of Jason Wilcox. That's what we've seen. Sergeant Brailsford, all these people. Now we just have to give them time as well. It's like managers. We don't know. We just have more ambiguity, more, I don't know what to expect kind of energy. So I don't think there's any, we can be optimistic and we can be hopeful. That's what I'm doing. But I don't think there's anything else we can do but that.
Yeah, it's that optimism and hope that kills us, though, isn't it? I mean, the hope of every manager we've had over the last 11 years and the optimism of them coming in, and we thought, we might be back then. And then obviously then we had the idea that the Glazers would be going, and they're obviously still here, but obviously it looks like that Sir Jim is probably going to be buying them out over the next couple of years, which is really positive. But it's that hope that kills us. I don't think I could go through another manager or another new manager in the hope that. I mean, if we were to get a new manager, I think Nagelsmann is the guy to go for. But you look at the betting in the UK, and I imagine it's fairly similar in the US, but he doesn't even look like he's in with a sniff of the Man United job. And I don't understand why he's not being spotted. I don't know whether that's because the Euros are coming up in Germany and stuff, but it didn't stop Van Gaal sort of nous how we knew he was taking over. So he'd be the only one that I truly think, do you know what, if we were to get rid of Ten Hag, I'd go for him. Because it doesn't feel in a similar ilk of... Do you remember when we had Van Gaal and Mourinho was right there? And I know Jay said this, but, when Van Gaal was there, we kind of knew Mourinho was there. So it was like, well, you go get him, don't you? I don't feel like that's the same now. So Ten Hag, I think that's probably why it's not as get rid of him, sack him. Because I think a lot of people are probably willing to give him that little bit of extra time and that patience. But it's like I say, that hope that kills us. And if this structure doesn't go well and, Jason Wilcox or Dan Ashworth or whoever it is doesn't come in for the summer, I think I'd be really hopeful, but a little bit drained going into the summer. It's never nice feeling like that when you go into a summer transfer window.
Yeah, of course. And I think Man United, I think the ownership, I mean, this might be a bit of a digression, and I might be talking a little bit not related to football, but I think Man United...
Digress, mate. I'm happy for it.
I think owners in particular are going to be wary of the decisions that have been made in the past 2 decades. And Manchester United Football Club have dominated for a very, very long time. And I think we've been riding the coattails of Sir Alex Ferguson's success. And I think the new generation of fans who will be the revenue, who will generate the match day revenue, who will generate the PR noise, who will generate the social media clicks, that has dwindled. You know, if we're looking at it from I don't know the numbers, but I'm pretty sure if we're looking at it from the perspective of owners looking at their charts going, all right, how many new fans have we gathered? How many fans have retained? How we retained? You know, I mean, I'm sure, you know, it sounds crazy, but I'm just talking from the perspective of business. I'm sure that has dwindled and sort of faltered over the years. And they're going to have to decide these things like, okay, what can we do to fix these things ASAP? Because Man United are a brand. They're an institution. They're going to have to maintain it some way. You know what I mean? I think that's important.
That's where the commercialism of the clubs come in, though, isn't it? You know, and you are right, obviously, that football's cyclical, and the fact that we haven't been winning as much, you know, the newer generation and the obviously, I think that sort of the diehards who grew up under the dads who were probably grew up right next to the ground, they probably just naturally will support who the dad did and all that. But the sort of the commercial aspects of the club and certain parts of the world where they really do focus on to try and bring them in as a Man United fan. They've probably gone to the likes of Liverpool and City and Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and we have seen that dwindle coming into United because we just haven't won, and we've sort of lost that sort of overseas aspect, I guess. But and I think from a business perspective, that is something that every club and every big club certainly needs. So they will definitely be looking from that perspective as well.
Of course, and you know the reason why I bring this up, and I'm pretty sure this sounds absolutely bizarre to many Man United, many fans or traditional fans who are probably from England, who were raised Manchester United fans or who are born into Manchester United fandom, right? But if you look at it from the global perspective, people outside of Manchester, people outside of England couldn't really be. There's a lot less of a chance that they were born into it. You know what I mean? Like, and for example, here in America, you know, I go around interviewing a whole bunch of people, talking to different people, especially like a few days ago, I was out in Midtown Manhattan doing interviews, and there was a whole bunch of kids that showed up, and I just kind of wanted to just kind of pick at their brains and you know, hear how they got into football. You'll be very surprised. A lot of these kids say they got into it through FIFA, or they got into it through iShowSpeed, or they got into it through avenues of you know, gateways into football that, you know, folks like myself and our age would be like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? My dad took me to a game to watch Old Trafford. You know, I grew up supporting Pakistan Hero. Like, there's obviously that kind of era of coming into footballdom has changed dramatically over the years. And I know these owners are going to be thinking about it because at the end of the day, for them, it's a business too. And, you know, just kind of going back, you know, from the digression, they're gonna have to decide where they draw that line. If they give Erik ten Hag the extra year, which I want, I guarantee you they're gonna say, okay, look, we have to appease the fans somehow. If you're a fan that's sitting at home going, I want Erik ten Hag out, whatever. The any of us are gonna go, okay, we're gonna keep Erik ten Hag. This is our decision. We're gonna keep him for one more year, but to compensate for that, we'll make the sort of changes that you guys might have been calling for. For example, maybe, you know, certain players that might need to go. You know, those kind of changes, they'll sort of compromise. And I think what Man United fans want to see is change, and they want to see something brave. And I think that's the word that we've been lacking a little bit. We haven't been brave enough, not just on the pitch. I'm talking about we haven't been brave enough in the market. We haven't been brave enough in terms of decision making, and as a club in its entirety. And that identity has almost disappeared. You know, and I think we need to reinstate that. And as a business, they need to understand here are certain lines that they can make from an emotional basis, but here's also a line that they need to draw with respect to investment perspectives and all these different factors. And it just keeps coming back to this, like, nobody really knows. There's just so many freaking changes. You were talking about Nagelsmann before. We have the Euros happening. We have Copa America happening. We have so much things going on that's just going to cause things to be in even more of a shitstorm. You know what I mean? Like normally transfer activities are tougher to do during international tournaments.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because the international tournaments are happening. So it leaves even less wiggle room and less time for negotiations. Imagine new owners, new staff, new executive team coming in, learning about the club in the midst of trying to make these decisions. Of course, you need to lock these new leaders in as soon as possible. Imagine the summer happening. Imagine we don't even have half the negotiations and we don't even know what our budget is. And then these new people come in trying to learn the club in the midst of all this chaos. It's going to be another season of absolute nightmares. And I think that's what I like from Ineos, is because they're understanding these things and they're trying to make that decision early.
Well, yeah, exactly. And to be fair, you absolutely are right, sorry, because I actually didn't even think of that. The Euros does make negotiations and manager negotiations and play it delays it so much. So do you know what? I didn't even think of that. So there is so much up in the air that we just simply don't know about. And I think ultimately what we need to do is we need to focus on the cup at the minute. We just need to keep rolling through the season. Hope that we stop City winning whatever, because if they win a back-to-back treble, that will kill me. But we just need to keep going and just see what happens at the end of the season, because the club will know, Ineos will know. Ultimately, the group of people that will never know at this stage is the fans, and unfortunately, we will just keep speculating and seeing what happens. But I guess to move on slightly from that, because I'm sure we could speak about that all day. But obviously, Chelsea Thursday, Liverpool Sunday. What are you kind of expecting from those games? Is there optimism? Is there a worry after the Brentford game? What's kind of your thoughts around that?
Like I said, I mean, at the top of the show, like I said, well, the thing that I learned from the Brentford result was that there's no, like, if I'm a betting man, like, I would not be betting on Man United because I have no idea what to expect. We thought we were going to get hammered against Liverpool, and we put up one of the best performances in time all. We thought we were going to cruise, or we thought we were going to get a professional, solid result against Brentford, and we get dominated for the majority of the match. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we go play Chelsea and we like draw against Chelsea or lose against Chelsea, and then we go to Liverpool, and then we host Liverpool and we smack up Liverpool. I wouldn't be surprised. So I really don't even know. You know, it's a flip of a coin.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea game I'm confident for, because Chelsea just are very strange. I mean, they drew 2-2 to a 10-man Burnley, who are shoddy, to say the least. I mean, the football hasn't been good. They've been terrible, to put it bluntly. They've been really bad. So Chelsea, I'd be fairly confident for. Although it is Stamford Bridge, so you never know what you're going to get with a performance there, I suppose. But the Liverpool game worries me, and I'll tell you why it worries me more. It worries me more because of that FA Cup game.
Of course,
I think if there was two games that you were to ask a Liverpool fan, what would you prefer to lose? They would have said the FA Cup game, because they'd obviously prefer to win the league over the cup. No, I love the cup, but that might just be because they're in the league hunt, I guess. But I fear for that game a hell of a lot more than the FA Cup match. And if the performance against Brentford goes into that game on Sunday against Liverpool, that one really could be a riot. It could be a whitewash, and that I don't think I can cope with another. It won't be 7-0. I'm sure it wouldn't be. I hope. I mean, you should be 100% confident saying something like that about a Man United side, shouldn't you? But I never know these days. But I'd like to hope that we show the same fight we did in the FA Cup, because if we can try and halt them from the FA Cup win, and we can stop them winning league in Klopp's last ever season, that would be beautiful, I think. And I mean, I hate City, but I despise Liverpool. And to see that, I would happily never see them win a trophy again if it meant City won. I'd always rather City than Liverpool win trophies in Liverpool. I don't know what your thoughts on that, to be fair. Because obviously, you're in Manhattan, somewhere in New York, is that right? So, what would your thoughts? Who do you hate more, City or Liverpool?
I don't know about hate, because I mean, when I first came into this Manchester United, the fan community, one thing I'll recognize right away was that Man United fans absolutely despise Liverpool. That was one thing I learned immediately, especially like when I was first like writing articles, when I was first like featuring on Full Time. That was especially even as well, like just learning how much hatred there was in terms of the rivalry between the two clubs. And I think that sort of I think rubbed on me as well. And respectfully speaking, like. Look, Manchester City, their success, it feels to me a little bit artificial, respectfully speaking. I just don't think that it's something that I respect.
Do you know what? That's exactly what Gaz said. Gaz Drinkwater said the other week. Shout out to him. But that's exactly what he said. It feels artificial. It feels fake. That's why if Liverpool were to win it, at least you could see a proper club winning it almost.
I just feel that there's just that history and the tradition that comes with a Man United versus Liverpool rivalry that I like. I wouldn't feel as hurt if Liverpool won versus City winning. But either way, it's like lesser of two evils, really. I mean, the fact that we have to sit here and talk about who would you prefer, it's just already it's like a punch to the crotch. You know what I mean?
It really is, isn't it? It's kind of epitomized the Glazer reign, hasn't it? The fact that it was those two clubs that have ended up winning everything and going head to head, whilst we've kind of just been in the background, not even been able to make a difference just because of how shoddy we've been run. But I appreciate we're getting on to about 45 minutes. I know we could chat all day, John, but I just wanted to move on to one final thing, because I'm really curious about getting everybody's thoughts on this. A big thing that Ineos have stated since coming in, and Sir Jim's been particularly outspoken on it, is the stadium. Now, I spoke to Jay about this, spoke to Gaz, Dev, spoke to various people on it, and I was always against it completely. Always renovate Old Trafford, keep it where it is, blah, blah, blah. However, and Jay was always very much of the start, other clubs have managed to keep that tradition, that history by also moving to a new stadium. I really want to get your thoughts on it, because I want to see it from a different fan perspective, from someone overseas in New York. Do you have a loving of Old Trafford but are happy to see it renovated, or do you have a loving where you think, I love it, but it is time to move on? What would you do with the stadium?
I'd first like to and I've been asked this many a times, and I'd like to caveat this first by saying that I think, respectfully speaking, many American fans or many non-Manchester-based or UK-based fans might disagree, but I think we have a little bit of a less of a say than folks who are regionally based in Manchester or in England, because Old Trafford means more to them. They've been there at the stadium more.
Wow,
they have an emotional connection. You know what I mean? And I think that's very, very important that we hear the voices and concerns of those fans. Right. But again, I caveated that because I also think it's also important from a global perspective of the fan base as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's more important to us right now, what's more important to Manchester United right now, is trying to play catch up. Right. And we all might have our love for Old Trafford. I cried the first time I took those steps up Old Trafford. The first time I saw that the headline.
When was that, out of interest, John?
2017. That was the first time. I remember I was broke as hell. I had no money, but I just scraped whatever money I could. I convinced one of my friends to come with me. We went. We had this whole thing where I was like, you know what? To try and convince him, I was like, I know a way where we can see the Man United players, but we have to even spend more money staying at the hotel that they stay at, the Lowry. He's like, what the hell? We don't even have already money to begin with. Are you crazy? But somehow did it. We put the money together and we were at the Lowry. And that moment where we couldn't see them, we thought we'd had lost hope. It was like a bus that pulled up and they started rolling out a carpet. I was like, oh, shoot, this is happening. And it was an incredible trip overall. But to me, that experience of, again, going back to Old Trafford, that experience of going to the stadium, you can feel the tradition. I swear to you, if you guys watching, you've never been to the stadium, I beg you, do it. If you feel it, you feel it in your bones, you feel it in your spirit, the history, the culture, every aspect of what it feels to be a Man United fan, you feel it when you step into Old Trafford. However, like I said, going back to the perspective of the global fan base, at the end of the day, we have to catch up, and football has become more commercialized than ever. Football has become more monetarily rewarded, involved in all of these things. And no matter where we like it or not, we have to make sure that these other clubs aren't beating us off the pitch. And if Old Trafford is a stadium that's just gotten to a point where I guess it's quote unquote irreparable because of the damages, or it just doesn't feasibly make sense from a commercial or financial standpoint, I think it doesn't hurt to move on from that. I think moving on and sort of knowing where to draw the line with respect to emotional attachments. I think with respect to stadium, at least, I'm also in the camp that I very much welcome a new stadium. I really think so. If there's a way where we can preserve Old Trafford, keep the integrity of the stadium so that we can, or from a safety standpoint, where we can maybe have the academy play, we can have the women's team play there, that would be incredible. I don't know to what. I don't know. I mean, everybody's like, oh, if Real Madrid, they blew up they destroyed their old stadium to build a new Santiago Bernabeu. We can't do that. We're Man United. We're even worse off than them. Why can't we? Why can't we exercise the option? Why can't we look at these things and we go, if we're going to build a stadium on the other side of that whole Trafford area, why can't we maybe keep Old Trafford? Why can't we do that? We're one of the biggest commercial powerhouses. Why can't we show the world that we can do that? I'd love to go watch, the Man United reserves and the women's team play at Old Trafford. That would be absolutely incredible. And then the men's team have their own new stadium, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that would be absolutely beautiful.
Do you know what? That's such a good answer, and it's a perspective that I never really thought of before. But so I actually grew up in Old Trafford. I grew up next to the stadium. Like, you could hear the roar. So I was literally not even half a mile from the stadium. Went in all the pubs as a kid. My dad was a member of one of the clubs around the stadium, so I was very close to it, and I was always, probably over the last 5 years, like, absolutely no chance. I would never leave, renovate it, just modernise it, whatever, do not leave. However, there was this sort of new thing from Ratcliffe, wasn't there? That, and you just mentioned it there, where you build it sort of on the other side of Trafford or in Trafford or whatever. But the land around Old Trafford, if we were able to stick it there and keep it, and then have best of both worlds, where we probably reduce the current size of Old Trafford and have the women play there, have the academy, have other events on at the new so-called stadium, like concerts or NFL or whatever it is. I think the commercialism, we catch up. We have a best-in-class stadium. I just hope we keep that sort of integral aspect of Man United in terms of the history, the statues, all that sort of stuff, but the feel of the closest to the pitch and the fans to the pitch and the fans' connection to the players. If we were to keep that in a new stadium, probably similar to the likes of Bayern Munich and potentially Juventus have, don't really see the issue with actually finally getting a new stadium. It'd break my heart not being able to go into Old Trafford as it is now. But I think because of the negligence and because of the just sheer fact that the Glazers have probably just left it to rot a little bit. It's probably overstating it a little bit, but just because they have let it rot so much, I think it's kind of left us almost no choice that we do have to move on and have that new stadium. But my thought is it has to stay in the same area. It can't be moved to another part of Manchester. It has to stay on that land. If we were to do that, I think I'd be okay with it. But I think it's the emotional attachment you said there. That's what people are clinging on to, and it's absolutely okay to do that. And I completely 100% get it. These are people who have took their kids for the first time to the games and stuff like that, and I absolutely understand it. So I'd never ever judge or necessarily even disagree with people that want to stay in the current Old Trafford in its current format. So I completely get it. But I'm really keen to get your thoughts on that, John. So, and I really love that answer. It's a really good way of putting it. But been going nearly an hour, so I think it's probably time. What have you got coming up next? I know you've got a lot of stuff on. So where can people find you? Where can people watch you and sort of interact with you more on a basis, mate? Because I love your content. So how can more people love your content?
I appreciate that, my man. Actually, before we do the closing, I kind of do want to include one last point. I think what I want to see from Ineos is that I want them to understand the sense of community. And I think that's very vital and important. I talked about the fans and yourself, somebody like a fan that's been literally next to Old Trafford. I think that's very, very important. And I want Ineos to understand that Manchester United, although we all as fans, we're not clueless. We understand that football has become commercialized. They also, I want them to understand that football is still a part of the community. It's still an integral part of our lives. It's still a massive influence on our day-to-day. And I think community plays such a key role. And however they go about the stadium, however they go about the decision-making with respect to the football club as an entirety, I hope they put the fans' interest at the heart of it all. I think that's very important. And in the stadium, I think that conversation that we had, the sense of community is so important. Understanding the emotions, understanding the feelings of the Manchester United fans who live in Manchester, who live near Old Trafford. I think that's all so important.
Absolutely.
And trying their best to preserve or trying their best to repay that emotional investment to these fans. I think that's very important. But
yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's something that's been lacking for years, though. The fans' voice has been nowhere near the forefront of any decision making over the last probably 18 to 20 years. So that is so vital, and having the stadium at a sort of heart of its community is so important, especially for that part of Manchester. I mean, Sir Jim did mention about the sort of rundown nature of those areas of Manchester, and it has certainly improved over the last 10 to 15 years since I grew up there anyway, but it's certainly improved, but there's definitely still more to be done. And if United's new stadium could be at the forefront of that and at the heart of that new community, so to speak, it could play such a pivotal part in the future of Manchester as a whole, not just that area. So, but yeah, it's a really good point. But like I say, John, where can people find you?
Yeah, if you guys want to chat, you guys want to talk, hear me absolutely go waffle about anything. I try to do my best to make my content based on not just positivity, but something that's worth watching and brings a smile on your face if I can. So if you guys want to come find me on Instagram, it's like Good Vibes John. On Twitter, I'm always waffling, talking. Mr. John Shin is the handle name. And Callum, I just want to say thank you for bringing me on, man. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I think we should keep in touch, because I think these conversations are obviously helpful, and I think it's important. Like I said at the top of the show, I think it's integral that we continue to have these dialogues and discussions, whether we agree or disagree or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what, John? Though, in all seriousness, I have genuinely, and not to sort of shine a light so much on you, but I've genuinely wanted you on for ages. You know, I followed you from the days on Paddock. Obviously, we've been on together and stuff. So I've really wanted you on here for so long. So the fact that you've managed to make time, you know, don't thank me, mate. I want to thank you. And what I want to finish on is when you are next in Manchester. Do you know when you're next in Manchester?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Do you know when you're next in Manchester?
No, sorry.
No. Are you not doing any Paddock watch-alongs or anything, or are you coming to any Old Trafford games before the end of the season?
To be honest with you, I have no idea. My schedule these days, I don't know what's going on with my day-to-day. Like today, I'm supposed to be working. I got to get back to work. Like I'm supposed to schedule. Like I'm all over the place. I want to try to make it out to Soccer Aid. I don't even know that's happening. I got work to do here in the United States. I thought I was going to be back in Manchester before the end of the season, but that's gone because I don't know what's going on with my schedule. But yeah, it's everywhere. I'm all over the place.
Well, make sure, mate, when you are over, let me know, and we'll go for a coffee. See if we can get Jay over for coffee as well. But massive thanks for coming on, John. I will definitely get you on again. Let me know whenever you're free, and we'll do that. But that has been John Shin. I've been Callum, and this has been the United Road. Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in next week. We've got a great guest in Daniel Graham next week. Really good friend of mine. Been for many pints with him, probably way too many. And I will see you then. But in the meantime, have a good week, and I will see you again soon.